Hey, this is Dr. Dan Grissom from Azusa Pacific University. Today in this tutorial I want to show you guys how to install and run a Vaadin project. Okay, so if you've never heard of Vaadin, Vaadin is basically a way to create web applications using just Java code. Okay, that's that's actually really cool. If you've done any web development or tried to, you've basically learned that the first languages that you typically use, such as C++ and Java, really aren't of a whole lot of direct use when it comes to web applications. Okay, maybe applications for phones. Android uses a form of Java and whatnot, but as a pure web application, you won't really find much like this. I basically kind of ran into Vaadin because I had a GUI that I had created just using Java and the Swing library. And I basically had all this code that was using it for offline GUI, and I wanted to basically reuse a lot of that and basically move that project to an online web application type of thing. So let me kind of show you a little bit about Vaadin. And I'll kind of explain just the high-level details of it as we look at a little bit of a sample. So I would just go ahead to Google and type in Vaadin, V-A-A-D-I-N, and you'll see Vaadin will come up. Actually, let me go ahead and I'll just go to this main page first, so you can kind of get an idea of the website. So you can kind of see they have some nice little slick screenshots. It's a very modern feel, so typically when we think Java, GUIs, it kind of has that old school 1990s Windows type of feel, which is kind of a little bit outdated. But go ahead to Google and type in the Vaadin sampler, and you'll basically get an idea of some of the web controls. If you're not familiar with GUI design, I have a number, about 5 or 6 tutorial videos you can watch. If you actually take those, you will be if you watch those videos, kind of go through them, you'll be very well prepared to actually write and create controls in Vaadin, because it feels a lot more like GUI design than it does like kind of traditional web design. Although it's kind of a mix, because it does help you if you know a little HTML, CSS, those types of things. But for the most part, you can kind of get away without it. So on the right here, you can kind of get if you just kind of click on these different tiles over here, you'll basically see different controls you can use. So you can see when I click the button, it does a notification. These are all things that basically you can do in your own web applications. Progress bars, things like that, right? Let's see if it does anything here. I guess it brings up a notification. You can do standard text fields, date fields, so you can bring up a calendar, really neat things like that. Combo box, you can see you can have little icons in there and all kinds of stuff. You can actually type in it, so if I wanted to type in United, it would start to filter it out. Color pickers, file uploaders, checkboxes, images, videos, tables, all kinds of really neat stuff. So in this video, I'm not going to really show you, I'm not going to really get to go too much into detail, maybe in some later videos if there's a need for it. But in this video, I just want to kind of show you how to install Vaadin. And one of the challenging things, Vaadin is a free framework to download. It kind of comes packaged as a number of jar files. It's somewhat challenging to deploy is what I found, though, especially to do it cheaply. It can be rather expensive, hundreds of dollars a month, which if you're like me, you really just want to kind of get something up for free, and maybe if it starts to grow, then you'll be able to support it and start throwing a little bit of money at it. But maybe you're just kind of working on a pet project, you want to get something up. So what I would recommend is using Vaadin, especially if you're just familiar with Java, and it's really all you need to know. You can write some Java code to create a web app, and then we're going to use the Google App Engine to basically deploy and run our code. Okay. Now you may be kind of wondering, well, how is Java code running on a browser and all this type of stuff? So kind of a very one sentence explanation is Vaadin is built on something called the Google Web Toolkit. So Google Web Toolkit is basically a set of tools developed by Google that allows you to basically write Java code. It kind of will compile that code in the form of some kind of controls to JavaScript. So at the end of the day, the Java code that you write is getting compiled. Most of it's running on a server, but then there's some client-side stuff. But essentially what's happening is that JavaScript code is what's actually getting run in the web, the browser. That's what you're actually seeing running is JavaScript. And it has like Ajax type of feel to it. So it's very smooth, very nice, very professional, very modern feeling. So with that said, I think that's enough to say about Vaadin. So let's go ahead and get our environment set up. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is go head on over to Eclipse, www.eclipse.org. Okay, and we're just going to go ahead and download the latest version. Okay, so as of today, January 14th, 2016, I believe we are on Eclipse Mars. So let's see, download. Take us to a download list. Now, if you're used to Eclipse, especially if you're a beginner, maybe used Eclipse for Java development for your introduction to CS computer science, you probably use Eclipse IDE for, let's see, Eclipse, is there a classic somewhere down here? They might have actually removed it. You probably used, I don't see it. There's usually like a more standard one. Probably just a very standard version of Eclipse. But for now, now that we're getting into a little bit of kind of web type of development, I would highly recommend you use the Eclipse IDE for Java EE developers. Okay, so like I said, that just kind of has some extra tools for web applications. So I'm going to go ahead and download the 64-bit version. And that'll take a minute or so as we download. As we're waiting, I would make sure that you have Java installed, or not Java, but the Java development kit. Okay, so if you don't, I would recommend using Ninite to install it. So www.ninite.com, and you can go over there and then come down to see Java development kit. You can just click right there. This is the easiest way to do it if you're on Windows. All this stuff that I'm showing you, by the way, will work on a Mac as well. I have developers that work on some of these similar projects and use Mac as well. Although this Ninite site will not work, you'd actually have to go to the Oracle website and download the JDK. So, anyway, you could click right here, get the 64-bit version or the 32-bit version, depending on what type of system you have. Probably the 64-bit. Okay, so we're done downloading. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up. So Eclipse in Windows, you can basically just drag it out to your desktop to unzip it. Don't need to really install it. All right, so go ahead and throw that away, the zip file. All right, so I've got my new Eclipse installation, and I'll go ahead and just run that. So you can see I have Mars right here. I think it's 4.5.1, Mars.1. There you go. Okay, so I should be able to close that. I'll wait for it to load up a little bit. I'll go ahead and just make a new folder here just for my kind of example workspace. So Vaadin tutorial. So I'll go ahead and browse to that Vaadin tutorial, which is on my desktop. Okay. And once Eclipse starts, there's a few plugins that we need to install to Eclipse. So the first one that we're going to need to install is the Vaadin plugin, and that allows us to basically create new Vaadin projects. So we'll go out and download the jar files for the newest version of Vaadin and all that stuff. So I'm going to go up here before I even do anything, click Help, and Eclipse Marketplace. As soon as it kind of loads up and I can search, I'm going to type in Vaadin, hit Enter, and you'll see Vaadin plugin for Eclipse and whatever the latest one is at the time that you install this. So go ahead and click Install, and you can pretty much install everything here. I think that's fine. Just click Confirm. The designer, I think, is kind of a graphical tool that you can actually lay out. You can lay out controls using. I believe that's a premium tool. I could be mistaken, but I believe you actually have to pay to use that on in its full form, or as not just a trial. I could be wrong. Make sure you accept the terms, finish, and then wait for it to install. Go ahead and pause this recording because I don't know how long this is going to take. Alright, so it looks like it's about done installing. Only took about a minute, so not long. Comes up with this warning. Go ahead, just click OK. It's fine. Oh, I guess it's not done. Now we're done. Alright, so it's going to ask me to restart. Sure, let's go ahead. Who knows if it really needs to be, but it's usually a good idea. Alright, so that was plugin number 1. So go back up to Help, click on Install New Software. Oh, sorry, wrong one. Help and Eclipse Marketplace. And at this point, we want to go ahead and just type in Google and hit Enter. And you will see a number of things. The main thing I'm looking for here is Google plugin. Okay, so I'm basically going to go and find the Google plugin with the highest number here. You can see there's a few of them. They all look a little different. It's kind of confusing. I'm not sure what Google's doing here. But obviously we're on a Mars, which I believe is 4.5 if I'm not mistaken. So here I see Google plugin for Eclipse 4.3, even though it's not a complete match. I have used this one and I know it works, so I'm just going to go ahead and download that. So I would just recommend whatever the latest one is, grabbing that one. So I'm going to install the Google plugin now, and I want to make sure that I maybe remove some stuff here, because I've, in my experience, have found that it'll bug you about some Android stuff if you don't check the boxes carefully. Alright, so Google App Engine tools for Android. Okay, I would highly recommend going ahead and unchecking that, because unless you are really doing Android development, which we will not be for Vaadin, it's going to, every time you log in, it's going to be complaining, or every time you open up Eclipse, it's going to be complaining about where is the Android jars and something like that. So go ahead and uncheck that, click confirm, I accept, finish, and again, I'll pause this while we're waiting for it to install. Alright, and after another about minute and a half or two, you see that warning again. Just go ahead and click OK, and your installation should finish. So go ahead and click yes to restart Eclipse. Okay, so as far as installation goes, that's really all you need to basically create a Vaadin project that you could in the future then deploy onto the Google App Engine. So just to make sure everything's installed right, you should be able to, if you right click on the Project Explorer, you should be able to click New, and then you should see over here Vaadin 6 and Vaadin 7 projects, so that ensures that you installed the Vaadin plugin correctly. And then if you want to know if you installed the Google plugin, you should see the blue G up here. So if you click the pull down menu, then you should see stuff like import app engine and so on, deploy to app engine, and so on and so on. Okay. Alright, so like I said, that was basically all you need to do to ensure that you have installed the proper tools. Alright, so the next step is let's figure out how we can create our first project. Alright, so up in the left on your Project Explorer, go ahead and right click and say New Vaadin 7 project. Okay, it's going to ask you for a project name, so we'll just call it my first Vaadin project, something like that. And we need to change a few settings here. So under Configuration Vaadin 7, go ahead and open up that list box, click on Default Configuration for Google App Engine, and then click Modify. One thing you want to change is under the Java project facet, click here and make sure you have 1.7 at the latest. So Vaadin actually supports newer versions of Java, but the Google App Engine actually does not support 1.8, and seems like they may not at this point. So you'll select 1.7 for that, and then you'll click OK. Okay, and then down here, deployment configuration, go ahead and click Google App Engine Servlet, and I can get rid of the Create Test Bench. Go ahead and click Next. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and just change these slashes. Should be fine in theory, but I've had a little bit better luck when I change them to the /. Okay. Next. Okay. And you can leave the web.xml selected in this menu. That's good. So click Next. Okay, so later on we'll come and add an application ID to actually deploy it. But for now, go ahead. You can make sure you generate project sample code, click Next, and then finally Finish. Okay. So the first time you do this, and I've actually already run this once, it's going to be downloading a bunch of stuff. It has a little message down here, and it's it might hang here for up to maybe even 2 or 3 minutes and just downloading, maybe even longer. So if it's doing that before you get this resolving dependencies pop up, don't worry about it. Just kind of wait it out. So once this comes up, you can just click OK. And it's going to create all these files. If you go into Java resources, you'll see it kind of gets you 2 of the main files. And I'm not really going to go into detail about how to create an actual cool Vaadin project. The goal of this one is to just kind of get it working. So you can see I have this project servlet up and open there, and then there's one more file that kind of has actually has a button in there. Okay, but not going to worry about that one. I am just on this file. If you go down to the war folder, okay, web.inf, you'll see a bunch of folders down here. The web XML, that's a key file, app engine-web. Vaadin stores some theme stuff. Yeah, and then these files are for basically kind of to help update your dependencies when needed. So for now, we won't worry about that. I'm just going to come in though to this my first Vaadin project servlet.java, and my first project in Vaadin. Okay, so I'll just put something there to know that when we see it launch that was actually my code. Okay, all right, so let's see if we can actually run this now. Okay, so I'm just going to click on Run My First, the green play button up here, and it will pop up with something. It might pop up with something that says Run on Server. If you see that, click Run on Server, and that should bring up this Run on Server pop up. Make sure you click Google App Engine, and localhost is fine. Google App Engine, all this stuff is fine. Just make sure it says localhost, and click Finish. You should see a bunch of red text, and now despite that being kind of daunting, right? Red's usually a bad color. This is actually a good thing, usually at least. Now up here you'll see this is actually an earlier project I run. I'm just going to hit refresh, and then you'll see that in fact this is my project. So this is the local host that it's running. So my first Vaadin project, you'll see my first project in Vaadin. Now typically, right, this is the local host, which means I can run this in a real browser. So I'm going to copy the address down here, localhost. I'm going to open up a browser, it's a new tab, and I'm just going to copy and paste that in there. And you'll see that now in my browser, so I could copy and paste this into Microsoft Edge or Firefox or anything like that. You'll see my first project in Vaadin. Okay. All right. So from there, one other thing you may be interested in is the back end. Okay. So you'll see in the red console output, there's some more text there. I can actually take that text and copy and paste that, and you'll see the back end. And the main thing to look at is this data store viewer. This is kind of like my database. This is almost like the MySQL version of what we would be doing, but this is actually using Google's data store. Different concept. Were we to have saved any objects here, you would actually see all the different basically classes of objects you saved, and you would say list entities, and it would give you like a table showing you all kinds of different objects that you've saved in there. Okay, but for now, I'll just kind of leave that one there. All right, so we're able to test and debug, and this will get you pretty far, right? You can now actually, in theory, add some controls out there and change your application, run some code and stuff like that. All right, so how do we then go to the next step and deploy this thing? All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to load up my browser, and I'm going to go to a website, a URL. We are going to type in appengine.google.com. Okay, so appengine.google.com. It's going to ask me to log in, so you'll need some kind of Gmail account. Okay, and then it will bring you basically to this page, my applications, with probably nothing here. Okay, no records. So what I'm going to do is just click on this Google Developers Console, and it'll take you to kind of a newer, clearly their new version. It's this Cloud, Google Developers Console. On the left, you'll see this products and service. You'll kind of click on that, essentially. It'll bring out the tab. Click on App Engine. And then basically, I just want to give this thing an ID. Now, this needs to be unique on Google's App Engine. So what I'm going to do for now is I'm just going to call this my first Vaadin project, and then maybe I'll add, I can't do underscores, I can do dashes, so I'll say 2016. Okay, so that should hopefully be a unique name. And advanced options, don't really need any of that. I guess you can pick where you want it to be, your app engine. So I'm just going to pick US Central, and then just click create. You'll see some activity down here. It'll be loading, and so what this is doing is it's actually creating a unique website for me where I can launch my code, right? So try App Engine now. You'll see it'll kind of take you to this little thing. I'm going to say Java, right? And it's kind of telling you how to do it manually. But this is the key thing I want to look for, right? So this is actually the address of the website that I am going to create. So I'm gonna copy that, and then I'm gonna open up a new tab, paste it, and you'll see there's nothing there right now. Okay, I just created this brand new. All right, so view your project dashboard. This will take you really nowhere, but that's all I really need. Okay, if you want, you can go back. I'm going to open up one more tab and just go back to the appengine.google.com, and you will now be able to see that I have my first Vaadin project, 2016, in that list of Google App Engine applications. You'll see the status is none deployed, meaning I have essentially never uploaded or deployed anything to this particular site. Okay, all right, so now what I want to do, I've got my actual website, right? This is a live website. Anyone in the world could go to this. I'm going to come and copy this ID. Okay, so I'm just going to copy that, my first Vaadin project - 2016. All right, so I'll go ahead and minimize this for now. Go ahead and now this stop is deceiving. This is actually like for the website loading. So I would come down here to my console and hit stop. That's going to basically close down that server. That's very important. You won't be able to upload, you won't be able to deploy to the live server if your local host server is running. Found that out the hard way. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try to deploy this thing. All right, so the first thing I need to do is I actually need to log in to Eclipse to my Gmail account. So down here, and I don't know why, for some reason my Eclipse is a little bit messed up, so it's kind of blocking the login, but this is actually a Google login. So I'm just going to click to sign in. Go ahead and add my email address. Log in, and then it'll ask me for all this stuff that the plugin wants to do. Just click allow. Okay, so now you'll be able to see, hopefully your view isn't blocked down here, but you'll see it's in color and it tells me who I'm logged in as. Okay. All right. So now what I want to do is I want to right-click my first Vaadin project. I'm going to go down here and don't click on the Google one, but click on the Google App Engine WTP. Okay, and you also want to make sure that you have a server that you've already launched it on the localhost. So you'll click on Google App Engine WTP, and then you'll click Deploy Project to Remote Server. Okay, the first time you do this, it's basically going to come up and it's going to ask you what your application ID is. I simply paste the ID from my App Engine app that I just created. Click Apply, click OK, and then you will see that it starts to do all the stuff, scanning. It will actually start uploading files to the live server. Deploying new version. Okay. All right, so success appears to be done. So let's go back up to our web app and hit enter. And you will now see that on our live page, we have the Hello App Engine, my first Vaadin project. You can click on it and you'll see the particular page that we had, my first project in Vaadin. Okay. All right. So again, that project in and of itself was pretty boring and somewhat useless in terms of the code that we displayed. But that at least should walk you through the process of what Vaadin is on a very basic level. How to download the development environment, how to basically launch your first project on a local host, and then how to actually deploy that to a live server. All right, thanks a lot. Feel free to leave any comments if you have any questions. Thanks.